Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I am Gino Buccola alongside Mike Beer with producer Bobby helping us out as we preview a Breeders' Cup prep race coming up this weekend. It is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, Mike. And the headliner in this one is going to be the Breeders' Cup Sprint winner from last year. He's trying to follow a similar pattern that led him to Breeders' Cup Sprint success when he used the Santa Anita Sprint Championship as a springboard to the Breeders' Cup Sprint, talking about Straight No Chaser, who we haven't seen a whole heck of a lot this year. So while, he's definitely the horse that we start with and we're all going to be looking at trying to repeat the Breeders' Cup win from last year, has not raced since April. And the last time we saw him was in the Dubai Golden Shaheen when he just really didn't fire that day. And he's had a couple little hiccups along the way that have backed him up and led him to use this as his starting point.
Yeah, he's had some issues along the way, right along in his career. He's been laid off more than once with some issues, but when he's right and when he makes it to the races, he's really fast and he's really good. And he came off of a similar layoff when he won this race last year, Gino. So we'll see if he comes back ready to fire here. He's going to be really, really hard for this field to beat.
Absolutely. He's proven he can fire off of long layoffs. That's no concern for him. Let's see how the race shapes up based on the Timeform US pace projector. This is where maybe he gets beat. If we're looking at this race after and saying Straight No Chaser didn't win, it might be because he's a little fresh off the bench. He wants to go. Speedboat Beach, Mike, is really quick. I don't think he's quite as good overall as he used to be, but he's still pretty fast. And even a horse like Wound Up is not this classy, but that horse is really quick too. So there are some horses in here who can go fast early. If Straight No Chaser gets beat, that's probably how it happens.
I think you're right to point that out, Gino. That's a really good point. I mean, he's landing in a race here where they really could sort of push him early in this race. It feels like Wound Up isn't good enough to win this race, but he might be able to factor, as far as the pace goes and make it hard for some of the other. Speedboat Beach, I agree with you. He hasn't been good since returning from the layoff, but he's going to show speed in this race.
Let's meet the field for the Grade 2 Santa Anita Sprint Championship, 6 furlongs, $200,000 up for grabs. And Dr. Venkman, he's in just solid form right now. I got to say, I was expecting a little more from him this year just to kind of step forward, but he's caught a couple of good fields for him because he's just solid, and you have horses with a lot of question marks. Even in this race, the two major contenders like Straight No Chaser and Imagination coming off long layoffs. Speedboat Beach, we don't really know what he is anymore. And then you've got Dr. Venkman, who's just kind of solid. He can sit pretty close, like mid-pack, and he can pass horses late. And he's just pretty honest, Mike.
Yeah. It feels like, what you're saying, and what I agree with is that it's just a good spot for Dr. Venkman. I don't know, man. Like, he hasn't run a race that is necessarily going to threaten the good Straight No Chaser.
Yep.
But if that horse, needs one off the lap or isn't quite right, or whatever case you want to make against the favorite, it's just a really good spot for Dr. Venkman because he's probably the second best horse in the race, at least as things stand right now. And he'll probably get a good trip in it. We just saw the replay of his Grade 2 win last time, just a perfect trip in that race, right up the inside, never having to leave the rail. It wasn't a particularly fast race, but it was another good one for this horse.
Yeah, and he has current form, and you can kind of envision him just sitting that same sort of trip inside. If they go too quick early and the field comes back to him, he'll be one of the horses passing late. Straight No Chaser, super talented, 2024 Breeders' Cup Sprint winner. Then he wins the Riyadh Dirt Sprint in February. Just nothing in Dubai, but that was a very difficult campaign. Talk about like racing at the highest level there and traveling all over. So time off now, and he still has the ability to get this prep race in and get him primed for another Breeders' Cup Sprint win in just about a month or so, Mike. So they can still get the job done. They can still get what they wanted out of this year with this race, leading him into the Breeders' Cup. And I mean, he just outclasses this field, no doubt about it. What I thought was interesting in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, he just kind of showed his class. He actually sat off a little bit. It was a strange trip for him, who's normally just a speedball. But I think that just shows you get a little bit older. You get a little bit more classy. You can sit off a little more mature. And I think he's certainly the horse to beat.
I'm glad you brought that up, the Breeders' Cup trip, because you're right. I mean, it had been nothing but front-running speed up until that point. That was fast pace in that race, and he just sort of sat off it, and he had no problem doing that. A good sign for him. I feel like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was an issue with this horse or why the layoff, but it feels like at least the first part of the year, this was their plan. I mean, they wanted to travel early in the year and shoot for those big purses overseas, and they got one of them. So I guess that's good for them. He didn't run that well the last time we saw him, but I just wonder if this was the plan all along anyway. Shoot for the big purses early, give him a little time, and then shoot for the Breeders' Cup again at the end of the year, and here they are.
Tough spot for Awesome Rhythm, but I am a fan of this horse, Mike. He's honest. He's just been in good form, and he's the type of horse who he puts himself in the race. He sits behind horses, and he can actually finish a little bit, but he's just not quite as classy as some of the top horses in here. I think he probably needs a lower level to be more competitive.
Probably good job by these connections, though. I guess finding out just only recently that he is a dirt horse, though. He's won 4 in a row now on dirt while steadily moving up in class every time. Now they're going to move him way up in class, and it feels like, this will just be too tough for him. But he's a cool horse.
Smooth cruising, has some ability. He's a 3-year-old who is going to be facing older after running second in a 3-horse field in the Shared Belief last time out. You notice when he was against Dr. Venkman, he was behind Dr. Venkman and Nisos a few starts back, and he was 66-1 in the Bing Crosby a couple starts back, Mike. So when you look at when he's had to face top company and older horses, he just hasn't really been that competitive.
Yeah, he's got an awful lot to prove here as a 3-year-old. I don't mind these connections, though, just sort of taking another shot, because if nothing else, outside of Straight No Chaser, the good Straight No Chaser, and maybe Dr. Venkman as well, but otherwise, this horse, he's probably got a real shot to hit the board in this race, and he's going to be a real price. I'm a little bit of a fan of his. I like him as a sprinter. I still feel like there's something there. He's probably not ready to win a race like this right now, but I think, as an older horse, he has a chance to be pretty good, and maybe he can get a piece of this.
I agree with you too. Once you get past those first 2 or so, there's just a lot of question marks about the rest of this field. Why not take a shot, see where he stacks up right now? Because one of those question marks is about the Grade 1 winner, Speedboat Beach, who wins the Malibu back in 2023. He was 4th in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He ran a really good race in the Breeders' Cup Sprint that year. As a 3-year-old, he was not beat a whole heck of a lot. And then he's off from December of 2023 to May of 2025. He shows back up this year at Churchill Downs in an overnight stakes race, and he shows some little bit of speed, but just really disappointing, Mike. He's off for a couple months back at Del Mar in the Pat O'Brien. He's favored there. He gets the lead. He just really wasn't running comfortable, and that was the type of trip a few years ago that he would have really enjoyed. They weren't going that fast. That would have been out of the scope of the good Speedboat Beach. I just don't know what to expect from him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're going to press on, to another, major graded stakes race here. So maybe that's a good sign for him that Baffert's not, backing off at all with this horse. Clearly, if he shows up and can somehow run his good race, he can win here. The first 4 starts of his career on dirt, all triple-digit buyers, and there's a Grade 1 win in there. I mean, he was obviously a really good horse early on, but he missed a lot of time, and he's come back, and, as far as I can tell, and just the way that I'm looking at his 2 starts, Gino, since he's come back, he was terrible in both of those races. I'm not sure he can run anymore.
Completely agree. Wound Up is right next to him too, and he's very fast, and that might make life difficult because Wound Up isn't as classy as a horse like Speedboat Beach, but he could really make Speedboat Beach and maybe some of the others in here work early on. He's a horse who's just, you look at his form and they claimed him for 10,000 and then just kept stepping him up the ladder. And I love seeing horses like that, but it's, when you have a horse like this, if it was a field that didn't have that much speed, you may even give him a shot. But that's the problem, is that he's going to face some legitimate other classy speed, Mike.
Good call there. He's in good form right now, but he's a little bit cheap for a race like this one. And you're right, Gino. I mean, there's just no way he shakes loose on this field and sort of makes himself dangerous. He just looks like he's totally overmatched here.
We have Mabagnik coming up next, and he has a big 100 buyer speed figure 2 starts back, now in the John Sadler barn. They actually put up $80,000 to claim this horse and then took a shot and stepped him right up against Graded Stakes Company. So when a good barn like that puts up a lot of money to claim a horse, you want to take notice. He is talented. He's capable of some big buyer speed figures. I had a tough time, and he was kind of a tricky read for me in here, Mike. What do you want to do with him?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to wind up being good enough. I mean, I don't mind the claim that these guys made. I feel they can probably make some money with this horse. I just don't think they're going to do it, in races like this. And he kind of obviously proved that last time they tried the Grade 1 off the claim. He was nowhere. They ran him in this race last year. He was, never a factor behind Straight No Chaser. I'm just not convinced he's this kind of horse.
Rounding out the field with Imagination, he's a Grade 2 winner. He can sit just off the pace a little bit. He's going to cut back in distance from last we saw him in the San Pasquale, but he hasn't raced since January. He's another wild card kind of question mark in here, Mike. When you look at the Malibu, if he can sit that kind of trip, that actually could be a good result for him. Sitting third, he was not far off of it. That race came back very strong now with Raging Torrent winning, and then Raging Torrent coming back and beating older horses, winning the Met Mile earlier this year. So to me, he's the kind of interesting horse in the race, because if they do go fast, and if there are Speedboat Beach and Straight No Chaser and maybe one or two of the other horses that aren't quite as good, all showing speed, this could be a horse from off the pace that can maybe sit and finish and pass some horses late. I never really known how good he is, but it's not a bad spot for him coming first start off the bench.
I like your thinking there. I like the way that you laid all that out. You know, I mean, this is a horse who he felt like he had potential early on. He was all these, they wanted to make him a route horse, obviously going long. He's in all these close finishes in those races, and very rarely coming out on top in those races too. It felt like cutting back eventually might be the right thing to do with this horse, and they finally did it in the Malibu, and he did run the fastest race of his life. So, you know, maybe that's what he's got in store going forward. I mean, ostensibly, this is his 4-year-old debut, right? I mean, he got one start in late January, so a long layoff here, time to develop now as a 4-year-old. I guess there's a chance he just comes back a much faster horse here now that he's 4 years old, but we'll see.
Let's round out the field here with selections, Mike. So how do you want to stack him up in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship?
You know, I get that there could be some cause for concern here with Straight No Chaser off the layup. I don't know, man. The longer I looked at this race, the more I just thought he's better than these horses. And if he's close to right, I think he's probably going to win.
Yeah, I think you and I both feel like he's the horse to beat, no doubt about it. We have Venkman in there as kind of a solid horse. We have Imagination in there as a horse who could sit a nice trip if getting the right circumstances, drawn to the outside. But, you know, Straight No Chaser is going to be really, really tough if he comes back running and he's fired off the layoff. So for Mike, 2-4-8-1. For me, 8-2-1-5. Whoever you play, however you play them, we wish you the best of luck.